Look at that.
Harris, it's bagel time.
They're flat. Look at how they popped.
Welcome to my kitchen. It's an exciting day today. I'm sharing with you bagels. Let's get started.
Hello.
Now, gluten-free bagels may not seem like a big deal to you. There are some really great alternatives available at the grocery store, but define gluten-free, dairy-free, and yeast-free, there are no options. So I needed to come up with my own version. And while we were on our vacation, somebody got to have this amazing bagel sandwich every morning. It was like a half a bagel with peanut butter, sliced banana, shredded apple, and blueberries, and it looked so amazing. Of course, I was jealous and wanted to come home and make my own. This is what I've come up with. We're starting with my stand mixer, 2.5 cups of my basic flour blend. And if you have not yet made my basic flour blend, that video is also available. It's a combination of white rice flour, tapioca starch, and arrowroot. 2.5 cups of that go in. I said this before, I don't weigh my flour because the rest of the world does not bake like that. Maybe those amazing gluten-free cooks who do get better results than I do, but mine always tastes good, so I'm not going to the extra step. Along with my basic flour blend, I'm adding 1/4 cup of sorghum flour. We've used sorghum flour before in my recipes. Sorghum flour holds on to moisture in our baked goods, but we want it in a low quantity because too much of it can kind of have a sandy, grainy texture. So if your baked goods end up with that really gritty texture in them, check the flour blend you're using. Chances are it's high in sorghum, and that's where that's coming from. So a little bit is good, a lot, not so much. And because we're looking for that soft texture in our bagels, we want a little extra starch, so I'm going to add more tapioca to my flour mixture here, another 1/2 cup. All right, so that is my base for flours. And as usual, I want some xanthan. You remember in gluten-free cooking, xanthan is what gives our baked goods the elasticity or chewiness that we are missing by not using gluten. I'm using 1.5 teaspoons of my xanthan. Because I'm not using any yeast, if you wanted to leave the sugar out, you could do that because it wouldn't be necessary to feed the yeast to give it the rise. But I do like the flavor. I'm going to use 2 tablespoons of sugar. So because its only purpose here is added flavor, if you wanted to avoid sugar for whatever reason, you could do that. You could replace it with honey. I would not use 2 tablespoons of honey because then the ratio of dry to wet ingredients is going to be off, but honey could be an alternative. If you're avoiding the sugar because diabetic purposes, probably the high carb of the bagel would counteract that anyway, but that's up to you and your doctor. Okay, so because there is no yeast in this, we need something else to give it rise. So I'm going to use both baking powder and baking soda to accomplish that. And this is where it gets tricky, is getting enough baking powder and baking soda to give me the rise without altering the flavor. So this case throw the lid on the floor. I'm going to use 2 teaspoons of baking powder and 1 teaspoon of baking soda. So baking powder starts giving rise as soon as liquid touches it and then continues it in the oven as the heat hits it. The baking soda is activated by an acid. In this case, it's going to be vinegar. 1/4 cup of egg white protein powder. The egg white protein powder is what we're using to give the structure to the flours that is missing without gluten. All right, I'm just going to mix my dry ingredients together so they're all incorporated and evenly distributed. So to my dry ingredients, I'm going to add 6 tablespoons of softened, semi-melted, all the way melted is fine, cold out of the refrigerator, not so much, butter. As you know, my favorite brand of non-dairy butter is Life. And as long as you are using something like Life that is soy-free, this would also be a soy-free recipe, but not egg-free, I'm sorry. Along with that, I want 1 1/4 cups of warm water. So we're talking warmer than lukewarm, but not as hot as like hot tub water. So warm water. Oh, I didn't mean to do that. So normally I add my egg white and my vinegar into my water and pour it in all at once. I just forgot that that's what I do. So 1 egg white, and I just don't use a fancy separator. I just go back and forth on my eggshell there. And then, like I said, the baking soda needs an acid to activate it. I prefer the flavor of a white balsamic just because it's a very mild, neutral flavor. But the purpose here is an acid. So a lemon juice should work. Any other vinegar should work. It would be to your taste. And I need a teaspoon of that. And like I said, normally I add it into my water, and so all of my liquids are in, at the same time, but oh well. Mix to incorporate. Once it is all mixed together, I'm going to turn the speed up here so that it really has a chance to work through. Which also kind of whips that egg white a little bit, gives me a little extra lift from that. All right. Now I'm ready to shape my bagels. So this is a very wet, sticky dough. So again, you've probably experienced this with other gluten-free baked goods. It just doesn't have the structure for shaping like a traditional glutinous dough would. So we have to improvise. Okay, so I am using my hamburger bun pan. The only reason I'm using this is because it's circular and I need it for a form. If I didn't have a pan like this, a round cookie cutter would absolutely work. I just am using it to create that round shape that we want from a bagel. And I am dividing my dough into 6, which this happens to have 6 spots in it. And for me, it's about 2 scoops. I'm just gonna do 1 and make sure that's completely even. You could use a donut pan. I've done that as well, and that works great to hold that shape. While it does make the process faster, it is a little more difficult to spread it evenly around the little hole in the middle of the donut pan. away. And I just kind of spread them around so that they're round. All right, so now the trick for the middle, a wooden spoon. All right, a glass of water and a wooden spoon. So I'm going to dip my wooden spoon in my water so that's wet, that way it doesn't stick to my bagel. Wooden spoon in the middle, swirl it around, ta-da! Nice bagel hole. Sometimes I come up with some good ideas. All right, now because this is such a soft, sticky dough, and I need to boil these before I bake them, I'm going to freeze them. So I put them in the freezer for about a half an hour. Not because I want them to be frozen, but because I want to be able to pick it up off of the pan before I put it into my boiling water. So these are off to the freezer for 30 minutes. I'm gonna clean up my mess, get out my water for a boil, and I'll see you back then. All right, so in my pan, I have 6 cups of water, 1 tablespoon of molasses, and 1 teaspoon of salt, and I brought that to a boil. I've just taken my bagels out of the freezer. Hopefully I left them long enough for them to set, but I can pick them up. I'm going to boil my bagels for about 45 seconds before I bake them. So here we go. So the reason I needed to freeze them was so that I could manipulate them, I can handle them because they are still pretty soft and sticky, but I need to be able to pick them up and get them into my water. There we go. So into my water, and I always set the timer on my phone actually for 45 seconds because, you know, how could I, not 45, there we go. And I let it boil for 45 seconds. So the first time I made these bagels, I got to this point and thought that this was gonna be a completely wasted effort because I'm like, they're flat. They're not very exciting, but watch when they come out of the boiling water. They start to puff just a little bit, and by the time they come out of the oven, they're nice, thick, juicy bagels. All right, so using a slotted spoon so that most of my water stays in, I'm taking it out. So again, they've started to puff, but this doesn't really look like a bagel yet. So yeah, you can see the difference there, starting to get puffy as opposed to the raw one. It's getting like a little bit of golden brown color. That's from the molasses. Still a little bit sticky. I could probably do more than one at a time. I just worry that because they're frozen, it would drop the temperature of the water too much and they wouldn't get the oil they need. All right, the last step is completely optional. It's an egg wash. So the last time I made these, I forgot to put the egg wash on and they still came out perfectly golden brown. So I'm gonna do half of them with egg wash and half of them without so you can see the difference, and then it's up to you if you want to do that or not. All right, here are my bagels. Here is my scrambled up egg ready for an egg wash. I'm just going to paint a little egg all over half of my bagels. Sure, why not? Just so you can see some contrast. Beautiful. Okay, they are ready for the oven. My oven is preheated to 375. In they go for about 30 minutes. I usually rotate them about halfway through. Oh, I forgot. I was broiling a bagel for breakfast. Gotta move it back down to the middle. 30 minutes, 375. Rotate halfway through. In they go. Harris, it's bagel time. The timer has gone off. And I'm ready to reveal gluten-free, dairy-free, yeast-free bagels. Look at how they puffed. Golden brown and yummy. Now I rotated them, so I believe that these three were the ones that I put the egg wash on and these three were not. They're slightly more glossy with the egg wash on, but really as far as golden brown, there's not much difference. So that one is completely up to you, the look that you want in your bagel, if you want to do an egg wash or not do an egg wash. I am going to cut one of these open. I have a fancy handy dandy bagel slicer, but just slicing them by eye works too. Sometimes either way, I don't get them even, so it doesn't really matter. I don't know which, choose one to slice. So even the bottom, golden brown all the way. They're puffy enough that I don't need my spacers to hold it. Alrighty, see if this is too hot to cut, which is usually what happens to me. Oh yeah. Look at that. All the steam because it's fresh out of the oven. Now, this may just be new to me, but I've recently discovered Philadelphia makes a plant-based cream cheese. And I don't know about you, but when I think cream cheese, it's always Philadelphia cream cheese. So I had very high hopes for tasting this, and I'm happy to report I was not disappointed. I did save a little. I've been eating a lot of bagels lately since I have discovered this. So I'm going to have a little bagel and cream cheese. All right, the taste test. Just what I've been missing. Don't forget to subscribe. If there's something you haven't seen me make yet and you want
Chewy?
Don't forget to subscribe. If there's something that you would like to see me make, please drop it in the comments and I'll get to work on it. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Goodbye.